The snow-capped peaks of the Cascade Mountains loomed silently over Pine Haven Wildlife Sanctuary as Emma Harrison made her final rounds before sunset. The seasoned wildlife biologist never expected that on this crisp autumn evening she would stumble upon a sight that would change not just her life, but the way we understand the deep bonds between humans and the wild creatures who share our world. What she discovered would reveal a truth so profound, so heartbreaking, that it would challenge everything we thought we knew about animal consciousness and emotional memory. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Twilight painted the sky in deep purples and oranges as Emma's boots crunched through the fallen leaves along the sanctuary's northern boundary. At 32, she had spent the last decade studying the local wildlife, particularly the sanctuary's population of black bears. The sanctuary wasn't just any wildlife refuge. It was a pioneering facility that rehabilitated injured animals while maintaining their natural behaviors, minimizing human contact to ensure successful returns to the wild. But it was also home to something else. The old Pioneer Cemetery, a historical landmark from the 1800s that the sanctuary had been built around, its weathered headstones standing as silent sentinels to the region's past. The autumn air carried the sweet scent of late-blooming wildflowers and pine needles as Emma adjusted her radio, checking in with the sanctuary's evening staff. The setting sun cast long shadows through the ancient Douglas firs, their branches creaking softly in the evening breeze. She had just finished documenting the day's observations when her radio crackled to life with an urgent message from Jake Thompson, one of the sanctuary's security guards. "Emma, you need to see this." Jake's voice was tense, unusual for the typically laid-back former ranger. "Remember that big male bear we've been tracking? The one with the distinctive silver patch? He's back at the cemetery again, third time this week." Emma's interest peaked immediately. Bear 415, nicknamed Silver for the unique marking on his chest, was one of their most closely monitored residents. He had been rescued as a cub 5 years ago, rehabilitated, and successfully released into the wild. While it wasn't uncommon for bears to establish territories near the sanctuary, Silver's recent behavior was unprecedented. "I'm heading there now," Emma responded, already changing direction. She pulled out her tablet, quickly reviewing Silver's tracking data. The pattern was clear. Over the past month, the bear had been making regular visits to the cemetery, always around sunset, always to the same spot. What made it particularly unusual was that there was no food source there, no natural attraction that would draw a wild bear back repeatedly. The cemetery came into view as Emma rounded the bend. In the trail, the old wrought-iron gates, worn by decades of mountain weather, stood partially open, their elaborate Victorian scrollwork catching the last rays of sunlight. Beyond them, weathered headstones rose from the ground like ancient teeth, some straight and proud, others listing to the side after years of winter frost heaves and summer rains. And there, just as Jake had reported, was Silver. The massive black bear, easily 400 pounds, sat motionless before a small, humble gravestone near the cemetery's eastern edge. Emma had never seen anything like it in her 15 years of wildlife research. Bears were typically active at this time, foraging for food to prepare for winter hibernation. But Silver showed no interest in feeding. He simply sat there, his powerful frame unnaturally still, eyes fixed on the stone before him. Emma reached for her binoculars, her hands trembling slightly with excitement and disbelief. Through the powerful lenses, she could see every detail of Silver's behavior. His posture wasn't aggressive or predatory. If anything, he appeared contemplative. The bear's usually alert ears were relaxed, his breathing slow and steady. Every few minutes he would gently touch the gravestone with his massive paw, an action so delicate it seemed impossible for a creature of his size. "Jake," Emma whispered into her radio, "are you seeing this?" "Yeah," came the quiet response. "Been watching him do this for days now. Something's not right, Emma. Bears don't act like this." Emma knew he was right. In all her years of research, she had never documented behavior like this in any wild animal, let alone a black bear. She began taking photos with her tablet, her mind racing through possible explanations. Was there something about the grave site that was attracting him? Some scent or sound imperceptible to human senses? As if sensing her presence, Silver turned his head slightly, acknowledging her without showing any sign of aggression or fear. This, too, was unusual. While Silver had been rehabilitated at the sanctuary, he had always maintained a healthy distance from humans after his release, exactly as they had hoped. But now he seemed almost willing to share this mysterious vigil with her. Emma took a careful step forward, her movements slow and deliberate. Years of experience had taught her how to read bear body language, and everything about Silver's posture told her he was not a threat. Still, she maintained a respectful distance, her tranquilizer gun untouched at her hip. As she moved closer, she could finally make out the details of the gravestone that had so captivated the bear. The stone was simple, weathered by time, its edges softened by decades of mountain storms. The inscription was barely legible in the fading light, but Emma could just make out the name: Sarah Mackenzie, 1842-1918. Below it, there was a shorter inscription: "Friend to all God's creatures." Emma's scientific mind began racing through possibilities. Could there be some connection between this historical figure and Silver's behavior? She pulled out her phone, quickly making notes while keeping one eye on the bear. The sun had almost completely set now, the cemetery growing darker by the minute. Yet Silver remained, his dark form a shadow against the deepening twilight. A gentle wind swept through the cemetery, carrying with it the rustling sounds of fallen leaves and the distant calls of settling birds. Emma noticed something else. Scattered around the grave were small objects: pine cones, bright autumn leaves, even a few wildflowers. At first, she assumed they had been left by visitors, but then she saw Silver gently place another pine cone near the headstone with surprising dexterity. "Jake," Emma whispered into her radio again, "I need you to contact Dr. Rebecca Chen at the university. Tell her we need access to the Historical Society's records, especially anything about Sarah Mackenzie. And get me the sanctuary's records from 5 years ago. Everything about Silver's rescue. There's something here we're missing." As if responding to his name, Silver turned his massive head toward Emma again. In the growing darkness, his eyes seemed to hold an almost human-like intelligence, a depth of emotion that challenged everything. Emma thought she knew about wildlife behavior. She had studied bear intelligence extensively, documented their problem-solving abilities and complex social behaviors. But this was different. This felt personal, intentional almost, reverent. The sound of approaching footsteps made Emma turn. Dr. Marcus Wong, the sanctuary's lead veterinarian, was making his way carefully through the cemetery. his silver hair catching the last bits of daylight. Marcus had been with the sanctuary since its founding, and if anyone could help make sense of this situation, it would be him. "I came as soon as I got Jake's message," Marcus whispered, coming to stand beside Emma. "How long has he been here?" "At least an hour," Emma replied, not taking her eyes off Silver. "And according to Jake, this is his third visit this week. Always at sunset, always to this same grave." Marcus watched the bear for several long moments, his experienced eyes taking in every detail of the unusual behavior. "In 40 years of wildlife medicine, I've never seen anything quite like this," he finally said. "But I remember something. When we first brought Silver in as a cub," Emma turned to him, curiosity burning in her eyes. "What is it?" "The location where we found him," Marcus continued, his voice thoughtful. "It wasn't far from here. There was an old cabin, long abandoned. We assumed his mother had been driven away by the development happening in the valley at the time, but maybe—" He paused, pulling out his own tablet and quickly scrolling through old files. The darkness was almost complete now, the cemetery illuminated only by the rising moon and the soft glow of their tablet screens. Silver remained at his post, occasionally touching the gravestone with a gentleness that seemed impossible for a creature of his size. Emma found herself holding her breath, feeling as though she was witnessing something profound, something that challenged the very boundaries between the wild and human worlds. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Marcus finally found what he was looking for, his tablet casting a blue glow over his weathered face. "Here it is," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The cabin where we found Silver. It belonged to the Mackenzie family. Sarah Mackenzie was the last to live there back in the early 1900s. According to these records, she was known locally as the Bear Woman, because she would care for injured wildlife, particularly orphaned bear cubs." Emma felt a shiver run down her spine that had nothing to do with the cooling night air. Could there be some sort of ancestral memory at play here? Some deep generational connection between this place, that long-ago woman, and the bear who now sat vigil at her grave? As if to emphasize the point, Silver rose to his full height, his massive form silhouetted against the rising moon. With one final gentle touch to the gravestone, he turned and slowly made his way into the forest, disappearing like a shadow into the darkness. But Emma knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a mystery that would challenge everything we thought we knew about the connections between humans and wildlife, about memory and legacy, and about the profound bonds that can span generations and species. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, the kind of autumn day that painted the Cascade Mountains in brilliant golds and crimsons. Emma hadn't slept much, her mind racing with questions about Silver's peculiar behavior. She arrived at the sanctuary's research center before sunrise, her desk already covered with historical documents that Dr. Rebecca Chen had sent over from the university archives. The research center was a testament to the sanctuary's commitment to understanding wildlife behavior. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the surrounding wilderness, while state-of-the-art monitoring equipment tracked the movements of hundreds of animals throughout the preserve. But today, Emma's attention was focused solely on the yellowed papers and faded photographs spread before her. "You look like you haven't slept," Dr. Lisa Patel, the sanctuary's behavioral specialist, remarked as she entered the room. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she'd been up late, reviewing the footage from the cemetery as well. I've been analyzing Silver's behavioral patterns from the last month. Emma, this goes deeper than we thought. Lisa pulled up a series of thermal imaging maps on the main screen. Look at this. Silver's not just visiting the cemetery randomly. His visits coincide perfectly with the lunar cycle. And there's more. His heart rate during these visits is remarkably low, almost meditative. It's like nothing we've ever documented in wild bears. Emma leaned forward, studying the data. What about historical records? Any mention of similar behavior? That's where it gets interesting, Lisa replied, pulling out a leather-bound journal from her bag. The university archives had this, Sarah Mackenzie's personal diary. It was donated by her great-granddaughter in the 1960s, but no one's really studied it until now. You need to see this. The journal's pages were brittle, with age, but Sarah's handwriting was clear and elegant. Emma began reading aloud. April 15th, 1890. Today I found another orphaned cub, its mother likely killed by the logging operation up north. There's something special about these creatures, a wisdom in their eyes that most folks refuse to see. This little one, with his silver-touched fur, reminds me so much of Ghost, my first rescue. The loggers think I'm mad, living alone up here, surrounding myself with wild things. But they don't understand. These bears aren't just animals. They remember, they feel. They teach me more about love and loyalty than any human ever has. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she turned the pages. Lisa, look at this sketch. The detailed drawing showed a bear cub with a distinctive silver patch on its chest, nearly identical to Silver's marking. She was documenting inherited traits over a century ago. Keep reading, Lisa urged, her voice tight with excitement. June 3rd, 1890. The silver-marked cub's family line has lived in these mountains for generations. Old Joseph, the native elder who visits sometimes, tells me these bears are spirit-touched, that they carry the memories of the land itself. I used to think such tales were just stories, but now I'm not so sure. Today I watched as 3 generations, grandmother, mother, and cub, worked together to heal a wounded member of their family. Their intelligence, their compassion. It defies everything I was taught about wild creatures. The journal entries continued, describing Sarah's life among the bears, her careful documentation of their behavior, social structures, and what she believed to be their capacity for emotional memory. But it was the final entry, dated just weeks before her death, that made Emma's breath catch. October 12, 1918. The Spanish flu has reached even these remote mountains. I feel my strength fading, but I am not afraid. My bears still visit each evening, especially the silver-marked ones. They bring me pine cones and fresh berries, just as they did when they were cubs under my care. These past 30 years, I've discovered something remarkable. These bears pass down not just their physical traits, but their memories, their connections. They remember kindness across generations. When I'm gone, I believe they will remember me, just as they remember their own ancestors. Some might call it foolish, an old woman's fancy, but I've seen too much to doubt. There is more to these creatures than science yet understands. Emma sat back, her mind racing. Lisa, what if she was right? What if bears, particularly this lineage, possess some form of generational memory we haven't recognized? Silver's behavior at the grave. It's almost like he's acting out a ritual passed down through his bloodline. It would challenge everything we know about animal cognition, Lisa replied, already pulling up research papers on her tablet. But look at these recent studies on epigenetic memory in mammals. We know trauma can be inherited. Why not positive? Associations, connection, gratitude. The implications were staggering. If they could prove that Silver's behavior was linked to a multi-generational relationship between his ancestors and Sarah Mackenzie, it would revolutionize our understanding of wildlife consciousness and emotional capacity. A knock at the door interrupted their discussion. Jake Thompson entered, looking concerned. "You both need to see this. Silver's back at the cemetery, but he's not alone." Emma and Lisa hurried to the observation point overlooking the cemetery. Through their binoculars, they could see Silver at his usual post by Sarah's grave. But this time, he was accompanied by two younger bears, juveniles, probably 2 or 3 years old. "Are they showing aggressive behavior?" Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. The scene before them was anything but hostile. The younger bears sat quietly near Silver, mimicking his peaceful posture. As they watched, Silver gently guided one of the juveniles in placing a pine cone near the headstone, the same ritual he had performed countless times. "He's teaching them," Lisa whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "This isn't just remembered behavior. He's actively passing it on to the next generation." The significance of what they were witnessing began to sink in. This wasn't just about one bear's unusual behavior. It was about the discovery of a profound truth about animal consciousness and the lasting impact of human-wildlife relationships. Dr. Marcus Wong joined them at the observation point, his experienced eyes taking in the scene. "You know what this reminds me of? There's a phenomenon in elephant populations where knowledge of safe passages and water sources is passed down through generations. They remember paths their ancestors walked centuries ago. But this is different. This is the transmission of an emotional connection, a ritual of remembrance." Emma couldn't help but think about the broader implications. In a world where human-wildlife conflict was increasing, where habitat loss and climate change threatened countless species, this discovery pointed to something crucial: the deep, lasting impact of positive interactions between humans and wildlife. The sun was setting now, painting the cemetery in shades of gold and amber. The three bears remained at their post, their presence both powerful and gentle, challenging every preconception about wild animals. Emma thought about Sarah Mackenzie, the woman who had seen this capacity in bears over a century ago, who had documented what science was only now beginning to understand. "We need to protect this," Emma said firmly. "Not just the bears, but this entire phenomenon. This could change how people think about wildlife conservation, about our relationship with the natural world." Lisa was already making notes on her tablet. "We'll need to design a proper study protocol, long-term observation, genetic testing, to confirm Silver's lineage, comparative behavior studies with other bear populations. But more than that, we need to tell this story. The story of Sarah Mackenzie and her bears didn't end with her death," Marcus added thoughtfully. "It's been continuing all this time, passed down through generations of bears, just waiting for us to notice, to understand." As they watched, Silver and the younger bears began their slow retreat into the forest. But Emma knew they would return, continuing a tradition of remembrance that spanned over a century. This discovery would challenge not just scientific understanding, but the very way humans thought about their relationship with the natural world. In the growing darkness, Emma made a decision. This story needed to be shared, not just with the scientific community, but with the world. It was a reminder that in an age of technology and urban expansion, the wild still held mysteries, and animals were capable of depths of emotion and memory that humans were only beginning to comprehend. The discovery at Pine Haven Wildlife Sanctuary quickly drew attention from across the scientific community. Within days, researchers from major universities were arriving, eager to witness the unprecedented behavior themselves. But Emma knew they needed to proceed carefully. This wasn't just a scientific phenomenon to be studied, it was a sacred trust that needed to be protected. The sanctuary's conference room buzzed with activity as Emma prepared to present their findings to an assembled group of wildlife experts, conservationists, and local tribal representatives. The morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating the enlarged photographs of Silver and his companions at Sarah's grave displayed on the walls. "Before we begin," Emma addressed the room, her voice steady despite her nerves, "I want to introduce someone special. Mary Blackhawk is a tribal elder from the local Stillwater Nation, and her people have lived in these mountains for countless generations. She has something important to share with us." Mary stood slowly, her silver hair catching the light. Her presence commanded immediate respect, and the room fell silent. "What you have discovered is not new to us," she began, her voice rich with wisdom. "Our stories speak of the medicine bears, creatures who carry the memories of the land and its people. When your Sarah Mackenzie lived here, our people called her She Who Speaks to Bears. We knew she had been chosen by them." From her bag, Mary withdrew a ceremonial drum, its surface decorated with intricate bear designs. "This drum has been in my family for 7 generations. The markings tell the story of a silver-marked bear who saved our people during a harsh winter by leading them to food caches and shelter, the same silver marking that your bear carries." The revelation sent murmurs through the room. Dr. Rebecca Chen, the university archaeologist who had helped uncover Sarah's journal, spoke up. "This adds another layer to our understanding. We're not just looking at inherited behavior, we're seeing a continuation of a relationship that predates Sarah Mackenzie, one that spans multiple cultures and generations." Emma pulled up new data on the main screen. "Over the past week, we've documented something remarkable. Silver isn't just visiting the grave, he's maintaining it. Our cameras have captured him removing fallen branches, clearing leaves, even bringing specific types of flowers that have traditional medicinal properties in Native American culture. The footage played, showing Silver delicately placing purple coneflowers, echinacea, near the headstone. Mary nodded in recognition. "These are sacred healing plants. The bears remember." Dr. James Morrison, a renowned animal behaviorist from Stanford, leaned forward. "The implications for our understanding of animal cognition are staggering. We've documented tool use in bears before, but this level of symbolic behavior, this apparent cultural transmission of knowledge, it's unprecedented." "But there's more," Emma continued, switching to thermal imaging footage. "We've identified a distinct pattern in Silver's brain activity during these visits. It's similar to what we see in humans experiencing deep emotional remembrance or meditation. He's not just acting on instinct, he's engaging in conscious, meaningful behavior." The presentation was interrupted by an urgent knock. Jake Thompson burst in, his face flushed with excitement. "Emma, you need to see this. Silver's back, but something's different. He's brought something with him. The group moved quickly to the observation point. Through their binoculars they could see Silver at Sarah's grave, but this time he was carefully placing something metallic beside the headstone. Emma's heart raced as she recognized the object, an old medical kit, its surface rusted but still intact. "That's impossible," Dr. Chen breathed. According to Sarah's journal, she always carried a medical kit for treating injured wildlife, but it was never found after her death. Mary Blackhawk's eyes filled with tears. "In our stories, the medicine bears were known to protect sacred objects, keeping them safe until they were needed again. This bear isn't just remembering, he's returning something precious that his ancestors have guarded for over a century." The implications were profound. This wasn't just about animal intelligence or inherited behavior. It was about trust, about a sacred pact between species that had endured through generations. Emma thought about how this discovery could change the way humans viewed their relationship with wildlife, with the natural world itself. As they watched, something even more extraordinary happened. Silver began making a soft, melodic sound. Not a typical bear vocalization, but something almost like humming. Mary's hands tightened on her ceremonial drum. That sound, it's the same frequency as our healing songs. The bears remember the songs too. Dr. Morrison was frantically taking notes. This suggests a level of cultural memory we never thought possible in non-human species. The bears aren't just remembering locations or behaviors, they're preserving and transmitting cultural practices, spiritual connections. Emma felt a deep sense of responsibility settling over her. This discovery wasn't just about publishing papers or advancing careers. It was about protecting something precious, something that challenged the very way humans thought about their place in the natural world. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the cemetery. Silver had been joined by the two younger bears again, and together they sat in what could only be described as a ceremonial circle around Sarah's grave. The medical kit gleamed dully in the fading light, a bridge between past and present. "We need to approach this with the utmost respect," Emma addressed the group. "This isn't just a research opportunity. It's a sacred trust. These bears are showing us something that could change the way we think about conservation, about our relationship with the natural world." Mary nodded approvingly. "In our tradition, when an animal chooses to share its medicine with you, it's a great responsibility. These bears are teaching us about memory, about loyalty, about the connections that bind all living things. We must listen carefully." Dr. Chen was already formulating plans. "We need to document everything, but in a way that protects this phenomenon. No invasive studies, no disruption of their rituals. We observe, we learn, but we do so with reverence." As they spoke, Silver rose and approached the observation point, something he had never done before. He stood on his hind legs, his silver patch gleaming in the sunset, and looked directly at the gathered humans. In his eyes, Emma saw something that defied scientific explanation. Wisdom, awareness, an ancient knowledge that transcended species, barriers. "He's acknowledging us," Mary whispered. "He's choosing to share this knowledge with us, just as his ancestors shared their wisdom with Sarah Mackenzie and my people before her." The moment was interrupted by an urgent call from the sanctuary's security team. Development companies had been pushing to expand into the protected lands around Pine Haven, and now they had filed an emergency petition to begin construction immediately. The sanctuary's legal protections were being challenged. Emma felt her heart sink. Just as they had discovered this extraordinary phenomenon, it was being threatened by the very forces of progress that had first driven Sarah Mackenzie to protect these bears over a century ago. But looking at Silver, standing proud and unafraid before them, she felt a surge of determination. "We won't let history repeat itself," she declared. "Sarah Mackenzie stood alone to protect these bears. But we're not alone. We have science, we have traditional knowledge, and now we have proof of something extraordinary. These bears aren't just animals to be studied. They're keepers of a sacred trust, guardians of memories that span generations." As the group dispersed to begin organizing their defense of the sanctuary, Emma remained at the observation point. Silver had returned to the grave, resuming his vigil. The medical kit caught the last rays of sunlight, a testament to the enduring bonds between humans and wildlife, a reminder that some connections transcend time, species, and even death itself. This discovery would change more than just scientific understanding. It would challenge humanity to reconsider its relationship with the natural world, to recognize that animals were capable of depths of emotion, memory, and cultural preservation that humans had only begun to comprehend. In the growing darkness, Emma made a silent promise to Sarah Mackenzie and to the bears who had guarded her memory for so long. This legacy would be protected, this sacred trust preserved for generations to come. Dawn broke over Pine Haven with an urgency that seemed to mirror the sanctuary's mounting crisis. Emma hadn't left the research center all night, poring over legal documents and environmental impact studies. The development company, Sierra Vista Properties, had launched an aggressive media campaign painting the sanctuary as an obstacle to economic progress. Their proposed luxury resort complex promised jobs and tourism revenue, but it would cut right through the heart of the bears' ancestral territory. The morning news played quietly on a nearby monitor. Breaking news from Pine Haven Wildlife Sanctuary, where an unprecedented discovery about bear behavior has sparked international interest. However, this scientific breakthrough now faces an immediate threat as development giant Sierra Vista Properties pushes forward with plans for a massive resort complex. The company's CEO, Richard Martinez, claims the project will bring over 1,000 jobs to the region. Emma muted the television as Dr. Lisa Patel rushed in, clutching her tablet. "Emma, you need to see this. Our thermal imaging picked up something extraordinary last night." The footage showed Silver and several other bears gathering at Sarah's grave under the full moon. But what caught Emma's attention was the pattern of their movement. The bears were moving in perfect synchronization, creating geometric patterns around the grave that exactly matched ancient tribal healing ceremonies. "That's not all," Lisa continued, pulling up another file. "Remember how we've been tracking the bears' vocalizations? Listen to this." The audio recording filled the room, a complex harmony of bear sounds that, when analyzed, matched the frequency patterns of traditional Native American healing songs. The bears weren't just remembering a connection to Sarah Mackenzie. They were preserving an entire cultural heritage that predated her by centuries. Mary Blackhawk arrived as they were reviewing the data, her face grave. "The developers have called a town hall meeting for this afternoon. They're trying to turn the community against the sanctuary, but we have weapons they don't expect: truth and memory. The town hall was scheduled for 2 p.m. at the Pine Haven Community Center. As Emma prepared her presentation, she received an unexpected call from Dr. James Morrison at Stanford. "Emma, we've completed the genetic analysis of Silver's hair samples. The results, they're unlike anything we've seen. The epigenetic markers suggest a form of inherited memory preservation that science has never documented before. These bears aren't just passing down behaviors, they're passing down actual memories at a cellular level." This new information added another layer to their defense, but Emma knew they needed more than just scientific data to save the sanctuary. They needed to make people understand the profound significance of what was happening here. The community center was packed when they arrived. Local residents, environmentalists, sanctuary staff, and corporate representatives filled every seat. Richard Martinez, Sierra Vista's CEO, stood at the podium, his expensive suit and practiced smile a stark contrast to the earnest faces of the sanctuary team. "Progress cannot be stopped," Martinez declared, gesturing to elaborate architectural renderings. "A resort will bring unprecedented prosperity to Pine Haven. Yes, we'll need to relocate some wildlife, but our environmental impact studies show minimal disruption." Emma took a deep breath as she stepped up to speak. But before she could begin, an unexpected ally emerged from the crowd. Benjamin Chen, the world's leading tech innovator and environmental philanthropist, stood up. "Mr. Martinez," Chen's voice carried authority earned from decades of pioneering sustainable technology, "your impact studies are based on outdated models that fail to account for the complex social structures and cultural behaviors of these bears. But more importantly, you're missing an opportunity to be part of something revolutionary." Chen turned to address the crowd. "I came here skeptical of the reports about bears preserving historical memories, but what I've witnessed over the past 24 hours has convinced me that Pine Haven isn't just a wildlife sanctuary. It's a window into understanding consciousness itself. That's why I'm announcing today that the Chen Foundation will match any economic benefits Sierra Vista is offering. But instead of a resort, we'll build the world's first interspecies cultural heritage center." The announcement sent ripples through the audience, but Emma knew they needed more than just financial backing. They needed to make people understand the profound nature of what was happening at Pine Haven. She stepped to the podium, her tablet connecting to the main screen. "Before we make any decisions, I want to show you something that happened just this morning." The footage began to play. Silver and his companions at Sarah's grave, but this time they were joined by something unexpected, a young injured bear limping badly from what appeared to be a trapped paw. What unfolded next left the audience gasping. The bears gathered around their injured companion in a circle, recreating the exact healing ceremony documented in Sarah Mackenzie's journal. Silver retrieved herbs, the same medicinal plants Sarah had used, and applied them to the wound with extraordinary gentleness. The injured bear's pain response readings, displayed on the thermal imaging, showed immediate improvement. "This isn't just learned behavior," Emma explained, her voice strong with conviction. "These bears are preserving and passing down medical knowledge that spans generations. They're not just animals to be relocated. They're keepers of a living history that belongs to all of us." Mary Blackhawk stepped forward, holding Sarah's journal and her tribal records. "Our stories tell of a time when humans and animals spoke the same language, when knowledge flowed freely between species. Science is finally catching up to what our ancestors always knew, that consciousness, memory, and wisdom aren't limited to humans alone. The evidence was compelling, but Martinez wasn't giving up easily. This is all very touching, but sentiment can't stand in the way of economic reality. Our project has already received preliminary approval from the State Planning Commission. And his words were interrupted by an unexpected sound, deep, resonant bear vocalizations carrying across the valley. The entire assembly rushed to the community center's windows. There, in the late afternoon light, Silver and his companions had emerged from the forest, visible from the town for the first time in recorded history. The bears moved with purpose, not toward the community center, but toward the old pioneer cemetery. As the townspeople watched in awe, the bears began their ceremony, a display of coordinated movement, vocalizations, and ritual behavior that defied explanation. Dr. Morrison, who had flown in for the meeting, provided live analysis through his portable equipment. The patterns they're creating, they're not random. They're replicating astronomical alignments from the time of Sarah Mackenzie's death. These bears aren't just remembering, they're telling a story through movement and sound. The display continued for several minutes, holding the entire town spellbound. When it ended, Silver turned toward the community center, rose to his full height, and released a sound that seemed to carry all the wisdom and memory of his ancient lineage. Martinez stood silent for a long moment before speaking. I've spent my career believing that progress meant building bigger, expanding further. But what if real progress means learning to preserve and understand things we never knew existed? He turned to Emma and Chen. Sierra Vista Properties is withdrawing its development proposal. Some things are worth more than money. The victory was more than just a triumph for conservation. It was a validation of something deeper, a recognition that the relationship between humans and wildlife was more profound and complex than anyone had imagined. As the sun set over Pine Haven that evening, Emma stood with Mary Blackhawk at Sarah's grave, watching Silver and his companions return to their evening vigil. The old medical kit still lay where Silver had placed it, a bridge between past and present. Sarah Mackenzie thought she was alone in understanding these bears, Mary said softly, but she was part of something much older, much deeper. These bears didn't just remember her kindness. They recognized in her the same wisdom their ancestors had seen in my people centuries ago. Emma nodded, understanding that their work was just beginning. The discovery at Pine Haven would change, not just how humans thought about wildlife, but how they understood consciousness, memory, and the intricate web of relationships that connected all living things. We're not just protecting a sanctuary, Emma realized. We're protecting a living library of knowledge, a bridge between species that could teach us how to heal our relationship with the natural world. As if in response, Silver approached them, moving with the dignity that had made him such a compelling ambassador between worlds. In his wise eyes, Emma saw not just animal intelligence, but something far more profound, a keeper of memories, a guardian of ancient wisdom, a testament to the enduring bonds between species that transcended time itself. The world's response to Pine Haven's discovery was immediate and overwhelming. News outlets from every continent descended upon the small mountain town, their satellite trucks lining the previously quiet streets. But Emma and her team remained focused on something far more important than media attention. understanding and protecting the extraordinary phenomenon they had witnessed. 1 month after the dramatic town hall meeting, Pine Haven had transformed. The Chen Foundation's Interspecies Cultural Heritage Center was already under construction, its innovative design incorporating natural elements and traditional Native American architectural principles. But more importantly, the center was being built around the bears' natural patterns and territories, not the other way around. Early morning light filtered through the research center's windows as Emma reviewed the latest findings with an international team of scientists. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a renowned expert in animal cognition from Tokyo University, pointed to a complex neural mapping displayed on the main screen. What we're seeing in Silver and his companions goes beyond anything previously documented in ursine species, Dr. Tanaka explained, her excitement evident. The bears' brain activity during their ceremonies shows patterns remarkably similar to human autobiographical memory processing, but there's something else, something we've never seen before. The screen showed comparative scans of Silver's brain activity alongside those of other bears worldwide. While all bears showed basic intelligence and problem-solving capabilities, Silver's lineage displayed unique neural pathways that seemed specifically adapted for preserving and transmitting complex memories and behaviors. Dr. Elena Rossi, a geneticist from the University of Rome, added her findings. We've identified what we're calling the Mackenzie sequence in Silver's DNA, a unique genetic marker that appears to facilitate the inheritance of specific memories and behaviors. It's as if these bears evolved a biological mechanism for preserving cultural knowledge. But the most remarkable developments came from unexpected sources. Indigenous communities from across the globe began sharing similar stories of animals preserving historical memories and cultural practices. A tribe in Siberia reported wolves that maintained ancient migration routes and hunting traditions. Aboriginal elders in Australia spoke of dingoes that remembered songlines from the dream time. Mary Blackhawk had become an integral part of the research team, bridging the gap between scientific observation and traditional knowledge. What we're discovering here isn't new, she explained to a group of visiting researchers. It's a remembering of what indigenous peoples have always known. That animals are not just creatures to be studied, but fellow beings who share this world's memory and wisdom. The morning's meeting was interrupted by an urgent call from the sanctuary's monitoring station. Lisa Patel's voice crackled over the intercom. "Emma, you need to see this. Silver's introducing something new to the ceremony." The team rushed to the observation point. Through their high-powered lenses, they watched as Silver and his companions performed their usual ritual at Sarah's grave. But this time, the bears had arranged stones in a pattern that exactly matched star configurations from the night of Sarah's death, a fact later confirmed by astronomical records. "This goes beyond simple memory," Dr. Morrison observed, his voice hushed with awe. "They're demonstrating an understanding of celestial navigation, of temporal mapping. They're not just preserving memories. They're teaching complex astronomical knowledge." The implications were staggering. These bears were proving capable of preserving and transmitting not just emotional memories or simple behaviors, but complex scientific knowledge. It challenged every assumption about the limitations of animal consciousness. As the team documented this new development, they received unexpected visitors. A delegation of scientists and traditional knowledge keepers from around the world had arrived at Pine Haven, drawn by the bears' remarkable demonstrations. Among them was Dr. Isabella Santos, a Brazilian researcher who had spent decades studying animal-human relationships in the Amazon. "What you've discovered here," Dr. Santos addressed the assembled team, "mirrors what we've observed in isolated pockets around the world. Animals don't just adapt to their environments, they maintain and transmit cultural knowledge about those environments across generations. But never have we seen it demonstrated so clearly, so purposefully, as here with these bears." The arrival of these experts sparked a new phase in Pine Haven's research. The Chen Foundation Center expanded its scope, becoming a global hub for studying animal consciousness and cultural preservation. But more than that, it became a place of healing the rift between human scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom, between modern progress and ancient understanding. Emma found herself working closely with Dr. Chen and Mary Blackhawk to develop new protocols for wildlife conservation that incorporated both scientific research and traditional knowledge. "We're not just protecting species," Emma explained during a global conservation summit. "We're protecting libraries of living wisdom, carriers of Earth's memory." The impact extended far beyond Pine Haven. Conservation projects worldwide began incorporating new understanding of animal consciousness and cultural preservation into their efforts. The United Nations adopted new guidelines for protecting not just animal habitats, but their cultural heritage sites and behavioral patterns. One crisp autumn morning, exactly 1 year after Silver's behavior had first been noticed, Emma stood at Sarah's grave with Mary Blackhawk and Dr. Chen. The morning mist swirled around them as they watched Silver and his companions perform their dawn ceremony. "Look at how the younger bears are learning," Mary pointed out. 2 juvenile bears were mimicking Silver's movements with increasing precision, while older bears watched and occasionally corrected their positioning. "They're not just copying, they're being taught, just as our elders teach our young." Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "We're witnessing the preservation and transmission of knowledge that predates human written history. These bears are living libraries, carrying wisdom we're only beginning to understand." As if responding to their discussion, Silver approached the group, something glinting in his mouth. With extraordinary gentleness, he placed another object. Beside Sarah's medical kit, a small, worn compass that historical records would later confirm had belonged to Sarah Mackenzie. "He's been guarding these artifacts all this time," Emma realized, "not just preserving memories, but protecting physical connections to the past." The discovery sparked a new line of research. Around the world, scientists began documenting similar instances of animals safeguarding historical artifacts. In Kenya, elephants were found protecting ancient tribal ceremonial sites. In Peru, condors maintained pre-Incan rock formations used for celestial observations. But perhaps the most profound impact was on how humans began to view their relationship with the natural world. The bears of Pine Haven had demonstrated that consciousness, culture, and wisdom weren't exclusively human domains. They showed that the ability to preserve and transmit knowledge across generations was a gift shared by many species. As the morning light strengthened, Emma watched Silver teaching the younger bears. His patience, his precision, his evident understanding of the importance of his role, it all spoke to a depth of consciousness that humans were only beginning to comprehend. Sarah Mackenzie wrote in her journal that these bears would remember her, Mary said softly, But what they've really remembered is something far more important. They've remembered the ancient contract between humans and animals, the shared responsibility to preserve the Earth's wisdom. Dr. Chen smiled as he watched the bears complete their morning ceremony. We thought we were creating a research center, but what we're really building is a bridge between species, between past and present, between different ways of knowing and understanding the world. The sun had fully risen now, casting long shadows across the cemetery. Silver and his companions prepared to return to the forest, but not before performing one final ritual. Together, they created a perfect circle around Sarah's grave, their movements synchronized with the precision of dancers. They're not just preserving memories, Emma realized. They're showing us a way forward, a way to remember that we're all part of something larger, something ancient and wise and worthy of protection. As the bears disappeared into the forest, Emma felt a profound sense of purpose. The discovery at Pine Haven hadn't just changed scientific understanding, it had opened a door to a new way of seeing the world, a way that recognized the deep connections between all living things and the importance of preserving not just species, but the wisdom they carried. The transformation of Pine Haven continued through the changing seasons, but it wasn't just the small mountain town that was evolving. The ripple effects of Silver's remarkable behavior had sparked a global awakening in how humans understood their relationship with the natural world. As winter approached, Emma found herself at the center of an unprecedented movement that was redefining conservation, consciousness, and connection. The Chen Foundation's Interspecies Cultural Heritage Center had become a beacon of innovation, drawing researchers, traditional knowledge keepers, and conservation experts from around the world. But it was the unexpected discoveries that continued to challenge everything they thought they knew about animal consciousness and cultural memory. One cold December morning, Dr. Amara Okafor, a behavioral psychologist from Nigeria, made a breakthrough that left the scientific community stunned. Using advanced neuroimaging technology, she had documented something extraordinary during the bears' ceremonies. The neural synchronization between the bears during their rituals, Dr. Okafor explained to the assembled team, shows patterns consistent with what we see in human collective memory formation. But there's more. They're not just sharing memories, they're actively creating new ones together. It's a form of collective consciousness we've never seen before in non-human species. The discovery led to a new understanding of how Silver and his companions were not just preserving historical knowledge, but actively evolving it. Each generation added its own experiences and wisdom to the inherited memories, creating a living, growing archive of knowledge. Meanwhile, the sanctuary's boundaries had expanded, thanks to a groundbreaking partnership between the Chen Foundation and local landowners. Rather than traditional conservation methods that separated wildlife from human communities, Pine Haven was pioneering a new model of coexistence. Sarah Mackenzie's great-granddaughter, Elizabeth, had arrived from Boston after learning about the discoveries. A renowned architect specializing in sustainable design, she brought with her a treasure trove of family documents that added new layers to their understanding. My great-grandmother wasn't just caring for injured wildlife, Elizabeth explained. Showing them previously unseen journals and photographs, she was documenting a sophisticated system of animal intelligence that her contemporaries weren't ready to understand. Look at these sketches. She mapped out complex behavioral patterns that we're only now beginning to decode with modern technology. The bears, too, seemed to recognize Elizabeth's connection to their past. During her first visit to the grave, Silver and his companions performed a ceremony they had never seen before, a complex series of movements that perfectly matched patterns drawn in Sarah's oldest journals. Dr. Tanaka's team made another breakthrough while studying the bears' vocalizations. The harmonic structure of their ceremonial sounds, she revealed, contains embedded information, like a musical form of DNA. They're not just making noise, they're encoding knowledge into sound itself. This discovery led to a collaboration with Dr. Chen's acoustic engineering team, who developed new technologies for decoding animal vocalizations. The implications for understanding interspecies communication were revolutionary, but perhaps the most profound changes were happening in the human communities surrounding Pine Haven. Local schools had incorporated programs that taught children about animal consciousness and traditional ecological knowledge. Farmers and ranchers who had once seen wildlife as threats were now working with the sanctuary to develop new methods of cooperative land use. Emma found herself particularly moved by the story of Jack Turner, a former hunting guide who had become one of the sanctuary's most passionate advocates. "I spent my life thinking I understood these mountains and their creatures," he told a group of visitors. "But watching these bears, seeing their dedication to preserving knowledge, their capacity for teaching and learning, it's humbled me in ways I never expected." The sanctuary had also become a place of healing for people struggling with grief and loss. The bears' unwavering dedication to maintaining Sarah's memory sparked something deep in visitors who came to witness their ceremonies. Maria Gonzalez, a grief counselor who had begun working with the sanctuary, observed something remarkable. People who watch the bears' ceremonies often experience a profound shift in how they process their own grief, she explained. "There's something deeply comforting about seeing how love and memory can transcend species, time, and even death itself." As winter deepened, the research team documented an extraordinary new development. Silver and his companions had begun creating elaborate snow formations around Sarah's grave, perfect geometric patterns that matched astronomical alignments and ancient tribal symbols. "They're not just adapting their ceremonies to the seasons," Mary Blackhawk explained, her eyes bright with understanding. "They're showing us how natural cycles and celestial movements are part of their inherited knowledge. This is sacred geometry, passed down through generations." The discovery prompted a worldwide investigation into similar phenomena. Reports began flowing in from across the globe, animals displaying previously unrecognized forms of cultural memory and knowledge preservation. In Thailand, elephants were documented performing ancient ceremonial movements during lunar eclipses. In Antarctica, researchers observed whales maintaining complex migration patterns that corresponded to historical shipping routes from centuries ago. Dr. Isabella Santos returned to Pine Haven with remarkable footage from the Amazon. "We've documented jaguars protecting ancient petroglyphs, moving fallen debris, and preventing erosion around rock art sites that are thousands of years old. It's as if they're conscious curators of human history." The implications of these discoveries extended far beyond wildlife conservation. Philosophers, religious leaders, and scientists found themselves engaged in new dialogues about consciousness, memory, and the interconnectedness of all living things. One evening, As snow fell softly around the sanctuary, Emma sat with Mary, Blackhawk and Elizabeth Mackenzie, watching Silver teach young bears the intricacies of their celestial ceremonies. The scene was illuminated by the gentle glow of the northern lights, their colors dancing across the snow-covered cemetery. "My great-grandmother wrote something in her final journal that I never fully understood until now," Elizabeth said softly, opening a worn, leather-bound book. She wrote, "The bears have shown me that wisdom doesn't flow in one direction, from past to future, from old to young, from human to animal. It flows in circles, like the seasons, like the stars, connecting. All things in ways we're only beginning to understand." Mary nodded, her eyes following the bear's movements. "Your ancestor learned what my people have always known, that every creature carries a piece of the world's memory. When we lose a species, we don't just lose an animal, we lose a library of wisdom, a unique way of seeing and understanding the world." The next morning brought news that would further expand their understanding. Dr. Morrison's team had completed a comprehensive analysis of Silver's DNA, revealing something extraordinary. The Mackenzie sequence they had identified wasn't just facilitating memory transmission. It was actively evolving, becoming more sophisticated with each generation. "These bears aren't just preserving the past," Dr. Morrison explained during an emergency conference call. "They're developing new neural pathways, new ways of processing and storing information. They're evolving not just physically, but culturally and intellectually." As word of this discovery spread, Pine Haven received an unexpected visit from Dr. Richard Nakamura, a quantum physicist who had spent decades studying consciousness. After observing the bears' ceremonies, he proposed a theory that would challenge the very foundations of how humans understood consciousness itself. "What we're witnessing here," Dr. Nakamura suggested, "might be evidence of what some philosophers have called the universal mind, the idea that consciousness isn't limited to individual brains, but exists as a field that all living things can access and contribute to. These bears might be showing us that memory and wisdom can exist independently of physical structures, passed down through what we might call the consciousness of nature itself." As winter began to soften into spring, Emma reflected on how far they had come from that first morning when she had discovered Silver at Sarah's grave. The bears had shown them that the boundaries between species, between past and present, between consciousness and instinct, were far more permeable than anyone had imagined. The Chen Foundation's center had become more than just a research facility or conservation project. It was a place where people came to remember something essential about their connection to the natural world, something that modern life had caused many to forget. As the snow melted and the first spring flowers began to emerge around Sarah's grave, Silver and his companions continued their ceremonies with unwavering dedication. But now, they were not just preserving memories. They were teaching humans and bears alike about the profound connections that bound all living things together in an ancient and ongoing dance of wisdom and remembrance. Spring brought unexpected changes to Pine Haven as the sanctuary's influence spread in ways no one could have predicted. The story of Silver and his companions had touched something deep in the human psyche, sparking a global movement that went far beyond wildlife conservation. It was becoming a catalyst for fundamental changes in how humanity viewed its relationship with the natural world. The morning air was crisp with possibility as Emma reviewed the latest reports flooding in from around the globe. Dr. Chen's network of researchers had documented similar phenomena on every continent, animals displaying sophisticated cultural behaviors that challenged conventional understanding of consciousness and memory. Dr. Sophia Patel, a renowned neuroscientist from Cambridge University, had arrived at Pine Haven with groundbreaking news. We've identified similar neural patterns in various species worldwide, she explained to the assembled team. Elephants in Kenya, wolves in Siberia, dolphins off the coast of Australia, they're all showing signs of what we now call ancestral memory transmission. But the bears here at Pine Haven represent the most advanced example we've ever documented. The implications of these discoveries had sparked a revolution in multiple fields. Environmental protection laws were being rewritten to account for animal cultural heritage. Urban development projects worldwide were being redesigned to preserve not just habitats, but the ceremonial spaces and traditional routes that animals had maintained for generations. But it was the personal transformations that proved most powerful. Sarah Martinez, a troubled teenager from the local high school, had found unexpected healing through her work with the Sanctuary's youth program. Watching Silver teach the younger bears, seeing how patient and dedicated he is, it showed me that strength isn't about being tough. It's about being consistent, being there for others, passing on what you know. The sanctuary had also become a place of reconciliation. Richard Martinez, the former Sierra Vista CEO who had once threatened to develop the land, had undergone a profound change after witnessing the bears' ceremonies. He now led a coalition of business leaders promoting sustainable development practices that respected animal cultural heritage. I spent my career thinking progress meant conquering nature, Martinez shared during a global business summit. These bears showed me that real progress means learning to listen to the wisdom that's been here all along. One morning, as dawn painted the sky in shades of rose and gold, Emma witnessed something extraordinary. Silver and his companions had gathered at Sarah's grave, but this time they were joined by other species, deer, wolves, and even birds, all moving in harmony with the bears' ceremonial patterns. Dr. Elena Rossi's genetic research had revealed something stunning about this unprecedented behavior. The Mackenzie sequence we identified in Silver's DNA isn't unique to bears, she explained. We're finding similar genetic markers across species, suggesting a shared capacity for cultural memory that transcends species boundaries. The discovery prompted Dr. James Morrison to propose a revolutionary theory. What if consciousness itself isn't limited to individual species? He suggested. What if it's more like a universal language that all living things can access, given the right conditions and teachers? Mary Blackhawk nodded as she listened to Morrison's theory. Our stories speak of a time when all creatures shared one a language, one understanding. Perhaps these bears are helping us remember how to speak it again. The impact of Pine Haven's discoveries extended into unexpected areas. The medical community had begun studying the bears' healing ceremonies, discovering profound implications for understanding trauma and recovery. Dr. Michael Chang, a pioneering trauma researcher, had documented remarkable parallels between the bears' ceremonial movements and ancient healing practices. These bears aren't just preserving memories, Dr. Chang explained. They're demonstrating sophisticated understanding of how movement, sound, and collective experience can facilitate healing. Their ceremonies contained patterns that matched traditional therapeutic practices from cultures around the world. Education was transformed as well. Schools across the globe began incorporating what became known as the Pine Haven Protocol, a new approach to learning that recognized the importance of inherited wisdom and the interconnectedness of all living things. Children were taught not just about nature, but from nature, learning to recognize and respect the cultural heritage of wildlife in their own regions. The sanctuary's research center had expanded to include a revolutionary healing facility where people could witness and learn from the bear's ceremonies. Cancer patients reported feeling profound peace after watching the bear's morning rituals. Veterans with PTSD found unexpected solace in the rhythmic movements and vocalizations of the ceremonies. Emma worked closely with Elizabeth Mackenzie to establish a global network of wildlife cultural heritage sites. Together, they developed new protocols for identifying and protecting places where animals demonstrated cultural practices and memory preservation. My great-grandmother saw something in these bears that the world wasn't ready to understand, Elizabeth reflected. Now, finally, we're catching up to what she knew all along, that wisdom doesn't belong to humans alone. The sanctuary's success had inspired similar projects worldwide. In India, elephants were being documented maintaining ancient pilgrimage routes. In the Pacific, whales were observed teaching young pods historical migration patterns that corresponded to celestial navigation methods used by ancient Polynesian sailors. One particularly moving development came from the Amazon rainforest, where indigenous communities partnered with scientists to document jaguars protecting not just territory, but cultural heritage sites. The big cats were observed maintaining clear paths to ancient rock art sites and keeping ceremonial grounds free of debris. Dr. Isabella Santos, who had been studying this phenomenon, shared her findings with the Pine Haven team. These animals aren't just acting on instinct, she explained. They're consciously preserving human cultural heritage. It's as if they recognize the importance of maintaining these connections to the past. The implications for conservation were profound. Traditional approaches focused solely on preserving species and habitats were being replaced by more holistic methods that recognized and protected animal cultural practices. The United Nations had established a new category of protected sites, animal cultural heritage zones, inspired by the discoveries at Pine Haven. As spring flowers bloomed around Sarah's grave, Silver and his companions continued their daily ceremonies with unwavering dedication. But now, their audience included not just researchers and visitors, but other animals who seemed drawn to participate in their own ways. One morning, Emma arrived at the cemetery to find Silver teaching a group of young bears a new variation of their celestial ceremony. The movements corresponded perfectly with recent changes in stellar alignments, demonstrating not just preservation of ancient knowledge, but active adaptation and evolution of their practices. They're not just keeping the past alive, Mary Blackhawk observed. They're showing us how to bridge past and future, how to maintain what's precious while adapting to change. The Pine Haven discovery had sparked what many were calling a paradigm shift in human consciousness. People weren't just learning about animal intelligence, they were beginning to recognize and respect the diverse forms of wisdom that existed in the natural world. Dr. Nakamura's quantum consciousness research had expanded to include studies of what he termed cross-species resonance, the way animals at Pine Haven seemed able to share and understand each other's cultural practices. His findings suggested that consciousness itself might be more fluid and interconnected than anyone had previously imagined. As spring deepened into summer, Pine Haven had become more than just a wildlife sanctuary or research center. It was a place where people came to remember something essential about their connection to the natural world, something that modern life had caused many to forget. The bears had shown that wisdom didn't flow in just one direction, from human to human, or even from generation to generation within a species. Instead, it moved in circles, like the seasons, like the celestial patterns the bears tracked in their ceremonies, connecting all living things in an ancient and ongoing dance of remembrance and renewal. Emma stood at Sarah's grave, watching Silver teach the next generation of bears their sacred duties. In their dedicated movements, their careful preservation of knowledge, their willingness to share their wisdom with others, she saw hope for a future where humans and animals could once again share a common language of understanding and respect. Summer brought an unexpected visitor to Pine Haven that would deepen the sanctuary's impact in ways no one could have foreseen. Dr. Maya Lin, a renowned expert in indigenous healing practices, arrived carrying ancient scrolls from a monastery. In Tibet, the documents contained detailed accounts of bears acting as guardians of sacred sites, their behaviors matching Silver's ceremonies with stunning precision. These texts date back over 1,000 years, Dr. Lin explained to the assembled team, her fingers carefully tracing the delicate illustrations. They describe bears performing ritualistic movements that align perfectly with what we're observing here. But what's most remarkable is how these behaviors were interpreted, not as simple animal instinct, but as conscious participation in maintaining what they called the Great Web of Wisdom. The revelation sparked a new phase of research at Pine Haven. Teams began correlating Silver's ceremonies with historical records from cultures worldwide, discovering patterns that suggested a universal language of movement and meaning that transcended both time and species. Emma's morning rounds now included monitoring an extraordinary development. Other animals had begun incorporating elements of the bear's ceremonies into their own behaviors. A family of wolves had established a daily ritual that mirrored the bear's dawn ceremonies, while ravens gathered to perform aerial patterns that complemented the bear's movements. Dr. James Morrison's latest research revealed something even more profound. The neural synchronization we're observing isn't just between bears anymore, he reported during an emergency conference call. We're seeing coherent patterns across species. Bears, wolves, birds, even the plants around the ceremonial sites are showing synchronized bioelectric activity during these gatherings. The implications were staggering. What had begun as the study of one bear's dedication to a grave had evolved into evidence of a vast, interconnected network of consciousness that spanned the entire natural world. Mary Blackhawk partnered with Elizabeth Mackenzie to establish a groundbreaking program combining traditional knowledge with modern science. Young people from indigenous communities worldwide came to Pine Haven to study alongside leading researchers, creating a new generation of scientists who could bridge ancient wisdom with contemporary understanding. One such student, Maria Running Cloud, made a discovery that left even the most seasoned researchers in awe. Using advanced acoustic analysis, she demonstrated that the bear's vocalizations during ceremonies matched the harmonic frequencies of ancient healing songs from cultures across the globe. It's not just similar patterns, Maria explained, her eyes bright with excitement. These are exact matches with sacred frequencies that healers have used for millennia. The bears aren't just preserving memories. They're maintaining a vital frequency that connects all living things. The sanctuary's influence continued to spread in unexpected ways. A group of architects, inspired by the bear's geometric patterns, began incorporating these designs into sustainable building projects. The resulting structures showed remarkable energy efficiency and positive effects on occupant well-being. Dr. Chen's technology team developed new artificial intelligence algorithms based on the bear's pattern recognition abilities. The resulting programs demonstrated unprecedented capabilities in environmental protection and habitat restoration planning. But perhaps the most profound impact came through the sanctuary's healing program. People struggling with trauma, grief, and emotional wounds found unexpected solace in witnessing the bear's unwavering dedication to preserving memory and wisdom. Sarah Chen, a young cancer survivor, shared her experience during a global conference on integrative medicine. Watching Silver teach the younger bears, seeing how they maintain these connections to the past while embracing new understanding, it showed me that healing isn't about returning to who we were before. It's about incorporating our experiences into a new way of being. The program had grown to include specialized sessions for various groups. Veterans with PTSD worked alongside wildlife biologists to document the bear's behaviors. Children with autism demonstrated remarkable improvements in social connection after participating in guided observation sessions. One morning, as dawn painted the sky in shades of lavender and gold, Emma witnessed something that would reshape their understanding once again. Silver and his companions had gathered at Sarah's grave, but this time they weren't alone. Animals from across the sanctuary, deer, eagles, wolves, even smaller creatures like rabbits and squirrels, had joined in a harmonious display of interspecies cooperation. Dr. Elena Rossi's genetic research provided a possible explanation. We're finding evidence of what we're calling resonant DNA sequences across species, she reported. These genetic markers appear to facilitate a kind of biological harmony, allowing different species to synchronize their behaviors in meaningful ways. The discovery prompted Dr. Richard Nakamura to propose a revolutionary theory about consciousness itself. What if consciousness isn't contained within individual brains or even individual species, he suggested. What if it's more like a field that all living things can access and contribute to, with some species serving as specialized carriers or transmitters of certain types of wisdom? The implications extended far beyond scientific understanding. Philosophers, religious leaders, and indigenous elders gathered at Pine Haven to discuss what these discoveries meant for humanity's place in the natural world. Rabbi David Cohen, a scholar of mystical traditions, found striking parallels between the bear's ceremonies and ancient texts. In the Kabbalah, there's a concept of tikkun olam, the repair of the world. What these bears are showing us might be their participation in this cosmic process of maintaining and healing the world's wisdom. Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Min observed the bear's ceremonies for several weeks before sharing his insights. These beings demonstrate what we call interbeing, the profound interconnection of all things. They're not just preserving memories, they're maintaining the very fabric of consciousness that connects all life. The sanctuary's success inspired a global movement. Similar sites were established worldwide, each dedicated to understanding and protecting the unique ways different species preserved and transmitted wisdom. In Africa, elephants were documented maintaining ancient migratory routes that contained crucial climate information. In the Pacific, whales were observed teaching young pods sophisticated navigation techniques that aligned with indigenous seafaring knowledge. Emma worked with international teams to develop new conservation protocols that protected not just physical habitats, but the cultural and spiritual practices of wildlife. The United Nations adopted these guidelines, creating a new category of protected spaces called Wisdom Heritage Sites. As summer reached its peak, Pine Haven hosted a global gathering of scientists, traditional knowledge keepers, and spiritual leaders. The event culminated in a dawn ceremony where participants witnessed something extraordinary. Silver and his companions performing their most complex ritual yet, one that incorporated elements from every major cultural tradition represented. At the gathering, they're not just showing us their wisdom, Mary Blackhawk observed. They're demonstrating how all wisdom traditions connect, how all beings share in the great dance of knowledge and remembrance. The gathering led to the establishment of the World Animal Cultural Heritage Foundation, dedicated to identifying and protecting sites where animals demonstrated sophisticated cultural practices. The Foundation's first project was to create a global map of animal wisdom traditions, revealing patterns and connections that spanned continents and species. As the summer days grew shorter, Emma reflected on how far they had come from that first morning when she discovered Silver at Sarah's grave. What had begun as a mystery had evolved into a movement that was reshaping humanity's understanding of consciousness, wisdom, and our place in the natural world. The bears had shown that wisdom wasn't a human monopoly, but a shared heritage of all living things. Their dedication to preserving and transmitting knowledge across generations had revealed something profound about the nature of consciousness itself. That it existed not just in individual minds, but in the very fabric of life, connecting all beings in an ancient and ongoing dance of remembrance and renewal. Pine Haven had become more than a sanctuary or research center. It was a place where people came to remember something essential about their connection to the natural world, something that modern life had caused many to forget. Through the bears' unwavering dedication to their ceremonies, humans were learning to listen again to the wisdom that had always existed in the natural world, waiting to be remembered. As autumn painted Pine Haven in brilliant hues of red and gold, a remarkable discovery changed everything they thought they knew about Silver and his companions. Dr. Rebecca Chen had been analyzing Sarah Mackenzie's recently discovered personal effects when she found something extraordinary: a locked wooden box containing detailed maps and documents that would reshape their understanding of the bears' ceremonies. These aren't just random patterns, Dr. Chen explained, spreading the weathered papers across the research center's main table. Sarah Mackenzie wasn't just documenting bear behavior. She was recording an ancient system of environmental monitoring. The bears' ceremonies aren't just memorial rituals, they're a sophisticated method of tracking and responding to environmental changes. The maps revealed a complex network of ceremonial sites across the mountain range, each corresponding to critical ecological indicators. The bears' movements, which they had interpreted primarily as memorial behaviors, were actually part of a vast living database of environmental knowledge. Emma worked late into the night with Dr. Tanaka and Mary Blackhawk, correlating the historical maps with current satellite data. The patterns matched perfectly. Every site where bears performed ceremonies corresponded to crucial environmental markers, watershed points, geological fault lines, and areas of significant biodiversity. "Look at this." Dr. Tanaka pointed to a series of overlaid maps. The bears' ceremonial movements change subtly with each environmental shift. They're not just preserving memories, they're maintaining a dynamic record of ecological change. This revelation coincided with another breakthrough. Dr. Sophia Patel's team had developed new sensors capable of detecting subtle electromagnetic changes during the bears' ceremonies. The data revealed something astonishing. The bears were generating coherent electromagnetic fields that influenced plant growth and soil composition. "They're not just monitoring the environment," Dr. Patel explained, her voice filled with wonder. "They're actively participating in its maintenance and healing. These ceremonies are a form of environmental therapy that we're only beginning to understand." The discovery prompted a re-examination of similar phenomena worldwide. Indigenous communities came forward with their own observations of animals performing environmental maintenance behaviors. In Australia, Aboriginal elders shared knowledge of kangaroos maintaining ancient songlines that corresponded to underground water sources. In Peru, condors were observed performing aerial patterns that marked geological fault lines. A young graduate student, Michael Runningwolf, made a connection that stunned the scientific community. Using advanced AI analysis, he demonstrated that the bears' ceremonial patterns matched ancient petroglyphs found across North America. These weren't just similar designs, they were exact matches, suggesting a system of environmental knowledge that had been preserved for thousands of years. "These bears aren't just preserving one woman's memory," Michael explained during a presentation that drew worldwide attention. "They're maintaining an ancient system of environmental wisdom that predates written history." Sarah Mackenzie didn't teach them these patterns. She recognized and documented something that was already there. The implications were revolutionary. Conservation efforts worldwide began shifting focus from simply preserving species to protecting these living networks of environmental knowledge. The United Nations established a new category of protected sites called Living Earth Libraries, places where animals demonstrated sophisticated environmental monitoring behaviors. Dr. James Morrison's team made another groundbreaking discovery. While studying the bears' vocalizations during ceremonies, the sound patterns contained encoded information about geological stability, weather patterns, and ecosystem health. When these vocalizations were played back in damaged environments, they appeared to stimulate healing and regeneration. "It's like they're carrying Earth's own repair manual," Dr. Morrison explained. "These ceremonies aren't just symbolic, they're functional, maintaining crucial ecological processes that we're only beginning to understand." The technology sector took notice. Silicon Valley companies began developing new environmental monitoring systems based on the bears' behavioral patterns. Dr. Chen's foundation established a partnership with leading tech firms to create what they called biomimetic environmental sensors, devices that replicated the bear's ability to detect and respond to ecological changes. But perhaps the most profound impact came through the sanctuary's new healing programs. People with chronic illnesses reported remarkable improvements after participating in guided observation sessions. The electromagnetic fields generated during bear ceremonies appeared to have therapeutic effects on human health. Sarah Martinez, the teenage volunteer who had found such solace in the sanctuary's work, began documenting these healing effects as part of her senior research project. Her findings would later earn her a full scholarship to study environmental medicine at Stanford. "It's not just about physical healing," Sarah explained during a TED Talk that would later go viral. "Watching these bears maintain their ancient knowledge, seeing how they work to heal the earth, it shows us that we're part of something much larger than ourselves. That understanding itself is healing." The sanctuary expanded to include a revolutionary medical research center that combined traditional healing practices with insights gained from studying the bears' ceremonies. Dr. Michael Chang, who had pioneered the study of ursine healing behaviors, developed new treatments for everything from chronic pain to post-traumatic stress disorder. "These bears are showing us that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken," Dr. Chang explained. "It's about restoring connections to the earth, to each other, to the ancient wisdom that exists in every living thing." One crisp autumn morning, Emma witnessed something that would become a turning point in their understanding. Silver and his companions gathered at Sarah's grave, but instead of their usual ceremony, they began a new pattern, one that exactly matched seismic data showing increasing geological instability in a nearby mountain range. Within hours, geologists confirmed what the bears had already known. A significant fault line had become active. Thanks to the bears' warning, local authorities were able to take preventive measures before any damage occurred. This event caught the attention of disaster prevention agencies worldwide. Teams began studying animal ceremonial behaviors as early warning systems for natural disasters. In Japan, researchers documented similar predictive behaviors in local wildlife populations near active volcanic zones. Mary Blackhawk worked with international indigenous leaders to create a new framework for understanding animal wisdom. "These beings aren't just reacting to their environment," she explained during a global summit. "They're active participants in maintaining Earth's balance. They carry knowledge that's vital to our planet's survival." The impact extended into unexpected areas. Urban planners began incorporating insights from animal ceremonies into city design. Educational systems worldwide adopted new curricula that included study of animal wisdom traditions. Even the business world was transformed, with companies developing new sustainable practices based on patterns observed in animal ceremonies. Elizabeth Mackenzie, inspired by her great-grandmother's legacy, established a global network of what she called wisdom sanctuaries, protected spaces where animals could maintain their ceremonial practices undisturbed. These sanctuaries became living laboratories where humans could learn from the ancient wisdom carried by their wild neighbors. As autumn deepened, Pine Haven hosted an unprecedented gathering. Scientists, indigenous leaders, healers, and environmental experts from around the world came together to witness something remarkable. Silver and his companions performed a ceremony that incorporated elements from every major animal wisdom tradition, documented worldwide. "They're not just showing us their knowledge," Mary observed. "They're demonstrating how all wisdom traditions connect, how every being plays a part in maintaining Earth's health." The gathering led to the establishment of the Global Animal Wisdom Initiative, dedicated to protecting and studying animal ceremonial practices worldwide. The initiative's first project was creating a comprehensive map of animal wisdom traditions, revealing patterns and connections that spanned continents and species. Emma worked with international teams to develop new conservation protocols that protected not just physical habitats, but the cultural and spiritual practices of wildlife. These guidelines were adopted by conservation organizations worldwide, marking a fundamental shift in how humans approached environmental protection. As the leaves turned and the air grew crisp, Emma reflected on how far they had come from that first morning when she discovered silver at Sarah's grave. What had begun as a mystery had evolved into a movement that was reshaping humanity's understanding of consciousness, wisdom, and our place in the natural world. The bears had shown that wisdom wasn't just about preserving the past, it was about maintaining the delicate balance that sustained all life. Their dedication to their ceremonies had revealed something profound about the nature of consciousness itself, that it existed not just in individual minds, but in the very fabric of life, connecting all beings in an ancient and ongoing dance of healing and renewal. As winter approached Pine Haven, bringing with it a hushed anticipation of change, Dr. Elena Rossi made a discovery that would transform their understanding of silver's legacy forever. Working late one night in the genetics lab, she noticed something extraordinary in the latest DNA analysis, a pattern that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The Mackenzie sequence isn't just about memory transmission, she explained. To the assembled team the next morning, her hands trembling with excitement. It's evolving. Each generation of bears isn't just preserving knowledge, they're actively developing new ways of understanding and responding to environmental changes. They're not just guardians of the past, they're architects of the future. The revelation coincided with an unexpected visit from Dr. Amara Okafor, who had been studying similar phenomena in African elephants. She brought with her evidence that would link animal wisdom traditions across continents in ways no one had anticipated. Look at these behavioral patterns, Dr. Okafor explained, displaying side-by-side footage of bears at Pine Haven and elephants in Kenya. They're not just similar, they're mathematically identical. These animals are participating in a global network of environmental monitoring and maintenance that transcends species and geography. The implications were staggering. Animal ceremonies weren't just isolated phenomena. They were part of a worldwide system of environmental stewardship that had existed for millennia. The bears at Pine Haven weren't just maintaining their local traditions, they were part of an ancient global network of animal wisdom keepers. Emma worked through the night with Mary Blackhawk and Dr. Chen, correlating data from wildlife sanctuaries worldwide. Every major animal ceremonial site they studied showed evidence of participation in this larger network. Whales in the Pacific coordinated their songs with bear ceremonies in North America. Birds in the Amazon synchronized their migration patterns with elephant movements in Africa. It's like discovering an ancient internet of consciousness, Dr. Chen observed, but one that operates on principles we're only beginning to understand. The discovery prompted a revolutionary new approach to conservation. Instead of treating each species and habitat in isolation, environmental protection efforts began focusing on preserving these networks of connected wisdom. The United Nations established the Global Animal Wisdom Heritage Program, dedicated to protecting and studying these interconnected systems of knowledge transmission. but it was a young climate scientist, Dr. Maya Rivers, who made the connection that would capture the world's attention. Using advanced atmospheric modeling, she demonstrated that animal ceremonial sites worldwide corresponded exactly to critical points in Earth's climate regulation systems. These animals aren't just responding to environmental changes, Dr. Rivers explained during an emergency climate summit. They're actively participating in maintaining Earth's ecological balance. Their ceremonies generate electromagnetic fields that influence weather patterns, ocean currents, and even geological stability. The revelation sparked a transformation in how humans approached environmental challenges. Instead of trying to engineer solutions to climate change, scientists began studying and supporting the natural maintenance systems that animals had been operating for millennia. Silver's role in this discovery took on new significance. His dedication to Sarah's grave wasn't just about preserving one woman's memory. It was about maintaining a crucial node in this global network of environmental wisdom. The cemetery at Pine Haven turned out to be a vital intersection point where multiple animal wisdom traditions converged. Dr. James Morrison's team made another breakthrough while studying the bears' winter preparations. The ceremonial patterns weren't just becoming more complex, they were adapting to address specific environmental challenges. When a nearby stream showed signs of pollution, the bears modified their ceremonies in ways that actually accelerated the water's natural purification process. They're not just preserving knowledge, Dr. Morrison explained. They're actively developing new solutions to environmental problems. These bears are environmental engineers, working with tools we're only beginning to understand. The healing impact of these discoveries extended far beyond environmental conservation. Dr. Sarah Martinez, now leading her own research team, documented remarkable improvements in human health in communities near animal ceremonial sites. The electromagnetic fields generated during ceremonies appeared to have profound effects on human nervous system function and cellular repair. These animals aren't just healing the earth, Dr. Martinez explained. They're showing us how all living things are connected in a vast web of mutual support and healing. One snowy morning, Emma witnessed something that would become legendary in scientific circles. Silver and his companions gathered at Sarah's grave, but this time they were joined by animals from across the sanctuary. Wolves, eagles, deer, and even smaller creatures like squirrels and rabbits. Together, they performed a ceremony of unprecedented complexity and beauty. Mary Blackhawk, watching through tears, understood its significance immediately. "They're not just sharing knowledge," she said softly. "They're showing us how all wisdom traditions connect, how every being plays a part in the great dance of life." The event was captured by the sanctuary's advanced monitoring systems, and the data revealed something extraordinary. During the EE ceremony, the assembled animals generated a coherent electromagnetic field strong enough to influence weather patterns across the entire region. Within hours, a severe winter storm system that had been threatening the area dissipated harmlessly. The implications were revolutionary. Animals weren't just responding to their environment, they were active participants in maintaining Earth's delicate balance. Their ceremonies weren't just symbolic, they were functional technologies, operating on principles that modern science was only beginning to grasp. Dr. Richard Nakamura's quantum consciousness research provided a theoretical framework for understanding these phenomena. "Consciousness isn't contained within individual brains," he explained. It's a field that all living things can access and influence. These animal ceremonies are sophisticated technologies for manipulating this field in ways that promote healing and balance. The impact on human society was profound. Cities began incorporating animal wisdom corridors into their development plans. Protected spaces where animals could maintain their ceremonial practices undisturbed. Schools developed new curricula that taught children to recognize and respect animal wisdom traditions. Even the business world was transformed, with companies adopting new models of sustainable development based on principles observed in animal ceremonies. Emma worked with international teams to develop what they called wisdom sanctuaries, protected spaces where animals could maintain their ceremonial practices while humans learned from their example. These sanctuaries became living laboratories, where ancient wisdom and modern science worked together to address global challenges. As winter deepened, Pine Haven hosted a gathering unlike any before. Scientists, indigenous leaders, environmental experts, and spiritual teachers from around the world came together to witness and learn from the animal ceremonies. What they observed would challenge everything humans thought they knew about consciousness, wisdom, and our place in the natural world. Silver and his companions performed a ceremony that incorporated elements from every major animal wisdom tradition, documented worldwide. The data recorded during this event would provide insights that would influence environmental protection efforts for generations to come. But perhaps the most profound impact was on how humans understood their own role in Earth's story. The bears had shown that wisdom wasn't a human monopoly, but a shared heritage of all living things. Their dedication to their ceremonies had revealed something fundamental about the nature of consciousness itself, that it existed not just in individual minds, but in the very fabric of life. As snow fell softly around the sanctuary, Emma reflected on how far they had come from that first morning when she discovered silver at Sarah's grave. What had begun as a mystery had evolved into a movement that was reshaping humanity's relationship with the natural world. The bears had shown that wisdom wasn't just about preserving the past, it was about actively participating in the ongoing evolution of life itself. Their ceremonies weren't just memorials, they were vital technologies for maintaining the delicate balance that sustained all life on Earth. Pine Haven had become more than a sanctuary or research center. It was a bridge between worlds, a place where humans could remember their place in the great web of life and learn from the wisdom that had always existed in the natural world, waiting to be recognized and honored once again. The late winter sun cast long shadows across Pine Haven as an unexpected discovery reshaped everything they thought they understood about Silver and his companions. Dr. Isabella Santos, working with a team of archaeologists, had uncovered something remarkable beneath the layers of snow and earth near Sarah's grave. A network of geometric patterns etched into ancient stone, perfectly matching the bears' ceremonial movements. These markings predate Sarah Mackenzie by centuries, Dr. Santos explained, carefully brushing snow from the weathered stone. They're identical to the patterns Silver and his companions performed during their ceremonies. But here's what's extraordinary. We're finding similar markings at sacred sites across the globe, all connected to animal ceremonial behaviors. The discovery sparked a new phase of research that would challenge conventional understanding of animal consciousness and human history. Dr. Chen's team, using advanced ground-penetrating radar, revealed that these geometric patterns formed a vast network across the continent, each point corresponding to locations where animals performed similar ceremonies. Emma worked through the frigid nights with Mary Blackhawk and a team of indigenous knowledge keepers, correlating ancient stories with the newly discovered pattern network. What emerged was astonishing, a map of animal wisdom traditions that stretched back millennia, preserved not just in human memory, but in the very behavior of the animals themselves. "These aren't just random ceremonies," Mary explained, her breath visible in the cold air. "They're part of an ancient system of planetary maintenance that animals have been performing since before humans walked the earth. Sarah Mackenzie didn't teach these bears. She recognized and documented something that had always been there." Dr. Sophia Patel made another breakthrough while studying the electromagnetic fields generated during the bears' ceremonies. The patterns weren't just affecting local environments. They were creating resonance patterns that influenced global weather systems and geological stability. "It's like discovering that Earth has its own immune system," Dr. Patel explained during an emergency conference at the United Nations. "These animal ceremonies are part of the planet's self-regulation mechanism. They're not just symbolic rituals. They're functional technologies operating on principles we're only beginning to understand." The implications transformed multiple fields of study. Climate scientists began incorporating animal ceremonial data into their models, leading to breakthrough understandings of how Earth maintained its ecological balance. Medical researchers documented how proximity to animal ceremonial sites affected human health and well-being. Professor James Morrison's team made another stunning discovery while analyzing the bears' winter ceremonies. The patterns weren't just maintaining environmental balance, they were actively healing damaged ecosystems. When performed near areas affected by pollution or deforestation, the ceremonies generated electromagnetic fields that accelerated natural regeneration processes. "These bears aren't just preserving knowledge," Professor Morrison explained. "They're actively developing new solutions to environmental challenges. They're environmental engineers working with tools that operate on quantum levels we're just beginning to detect." The sanctuary expanded to include a revolutionary research center dedicated to understanding and supporting these animal wisdom traditions. Scientists worked alongside indigenous knowledge keepers, combining advanced technology with ancient understanding to decode the sophisticated environmental maintenance systems that animals had been operating for millennia. Young researchers like Maria Running Cloud led the way in bridging these different ways of knowing. Her groundbreaking work demonstrating how animal ceremonies influence climate patterns earned her both academic recognition and respect from traditional knowledge keepers. "These animals aren't just responding to environmental changes," Maria explained during a global climate summit. "They're active participants in maintaining Earth's ecological balance. Their ceremonies are sophisticated technologies operating on principles that transcend our current scientific understanding." The impact extended far beyond environmental science. Dr. Michael Chang's medical research revealed that the electromagnetic fields generated during animal ceremonies had profound effects on human health. Cancer patients reported remarkable improvements. After spending time near ceremonial sites, veterans with PTSD found unexpected healing through witnessing the animals' dedicated practices. "These ceremonies aren't just affecting the environment," Dr. Chang explained. "They're showing us how all living things are connected in a vast web of mutual healing and support. The bears aren't just healing the earth, they're showing us how to heal ourselves." Emma's work with international conservation teams led to the establishment of what they called wisdom corridors, protected pathways connecting animal ceremonial sites worldwide. These corridors allowed animals to maintain their ancient practices while providing opportunities for humans to learn, and from their example. One particularly cold morning, Emma witnessed something that would become legendary in scientific circles. Silver and his companions gathered at Sarah's grave, but this time they were joined by bears from distant regions, each bringing their own variations of the ceremonial patterns. Together, they performed a ceremony of unprecedented complexity and power. Mary Blackhawk, watching through tears, understood its significance immediately. "They're not just sharing knowledge," she said softly. "They're showing us how wisdom evolves, how different traditions can come together to create something new and powerful." The event was captured by the sanctuary's advanced monitoring systems, and the data revealed something extraordinary. During the ceremony, the assembled bears generated coherent electromagnetic fields strong enough to influence weather patterns across the entire continent. Within days, severe weather systems that had been threatening multiple regions dissipated harmlessly. Dr. Richard Nakamura's quantum consciousness research provided a theoretical framework for understanding these phenomena. "What we're seeing isn't just animal behavior," he explained. "It's evidence of a field of consciousness that all living things can access and influence. These ceremonies are sophisticated technologies for manipulating this field in ways that promote healing and balance." The implications for human society were profound. Cities began incorporating animal wisdom corridors into their development plans. Schools developed new curricula teaching children to recognize and respect animal wisdom traditions. Even the business world was transformed, with companies adopting new models of sustainable development based on principles observed in animal ceremonies. Elizabeth Mackenzie, inspired by her great-grandmother's legacy, established a global network of wisdom sanctuaries, protected spaces where animals could maintain their ceremonial practices while humans learned from their example. These sanctuaries became living laboratories where ancient wisdom and modern science worked together to address global challenges. As winter began to soften toward spring, Pine Haven hosted a gathering unlike any before. Scientists, indigenous leaders, environmental experts, and spiritual teachers from around the world came together to witness and learn from the animal ceremonies. What they observed would challenge everything humans thought they knew about consciousness, wisdom, and our place in the natural world. Silver and his companions performed a ceremony that incorporated elements from every major animal wisdom tradition documented worldwide. The data recorded during this event would provide insights that would influence environmental protection efforts for generations to come. But perhaps the most profound impact was on how humans understood their own role in Earth's story. The bears had shown that wisdom wasn't a human monopoly, but a shared heritage of all living things. Their dedication to their ceremonies had revealed something fundamental about the nature of consciousness itself, that it existed not just in individual minds, but in the very fabric of life. As the late winter sun set behind the mountains, Emma reflected on how far they had come from that first morning when she discovered silver at Sarah's grave. What had begun as a mystery had evolved into a movement that was reshaping humanity's relationship with the natural world. The bears had shown that wisdom wasn't just about preserving the past. It was about actively participating in the ongoing evolution of life itself. Their ceremonies weren't just memorials. They were vital technologies for maintaining the delicate balance that sustained all life on Earth. Pine Haven had become more than a sanctuary or research center. It was a bridge between worlds, a place where humans could remember their place in the great web of life and learn from the wisdom that had always existed in the natural world, waiting to be recognized and honored once again. The first whispers of spring brought with them a final revelation that would complete the extraordinary story of Silver and his companions. Dr. Elena Rossi, working with a team of quantum physicists, made a discovery that would forever change our understanding of consciousness, memory, and the interconnected nature of all life. The bears aren't just preserving memories or performing ceremonies, Dr. Rossi explained to a stunned audience at Pine Haven's research center. They're accessing what we're calling the planetary consciousness field, a quantum network that connects all living things. Their ceremonies are actually sophisticated interfaces with this field, allowing them to both access and contribute to Earth's collective wisdom. The evidence was undeniable. Using newly developed quantum sensors, Dr. Rossi's team had detected coherent patterns of quantum entanglement during the bears' ceremonies. These patterns extended far beyond Pine Haven, connecting with similar fields generated by animals performing ceremonies around the world. Emma worked through the night with Dr. Chen and Mary Blackhawk, correlating this new data with ancient wisdom traditions from cultures worldwide. What emerged was a picture of staggering complexity and beauty, evidence that animals had been maintaining Earth's ecological balance through quantum-level interactions for millions of years. Sarah Mackenzie's grave wasn't just a focal point for memory, Mary explained, her eyes bright with understanding. It's a node in this quantum network, a place where the bears can most effectively connect with and influence the planetary consciousness field. The implications revolutionized multiple fields of study. Dr. James Morrison's team documented how these quantum interactions influenced everything from weather patterns to geological stability. Medical researchers discovered that exposure to these quantum fields had profound healing effects on human physiology, but it was young Sarah Martinez, now a graduate student studying quantum biology, who made the connection that would capture the world's imagination. Using advanced AI analysis, she demonstrated that the bears' ceremonies weren't just maintaining ecological balance. They were actively evolving to address new environmental challenges. These bears aren't just preserving ancient wisdom. Sarah explained during a global conference that drew leaders from every field. They're developing new solutions to contemporary problems. They're showing us that wisdom isn't static. It's a living, evolving force that all beings contribute to and share. The discovery prompted a fundamental shift in how humans approached environmental challenges. Instead of trying to engineer solutions, scientists began working to support and enhance the natural wisdom-sharing networks that animals had been maintaining all along. Dr. Sophia Patel's research revealed another extraordinary aspect of this phenomenon. The quantum fields generated during animal ceremonies didn't just influence the physical environment, they affected consciousness itself, promoting heightened awareness and interconnection among all living things exposed to them. These ceremonies are like doorways, Dr. Patel explained, allowing beings to access and contribute to a shared field of consciousness that transcends individual species. The bears aren't just performing rituals. They're teaching us how to reconnect with this fundamental aspect of life that modern humans have forgotten. Emma witnessed the power of this connection one early spring morning when something unprecedented occurred at Sarah's grave. Silver and his companions gathered for their dawn ceremony, but this time, humans in attendance reported experiencing direct, conscious awareness of the quantum field the bears were accessing. It was like suddenly remembering something we'd always known but had forgotten, Emma later wrote in her journal. Through the bears' ceremony, we could feel our connection to all living things, to the earth itself. We weren't just observing their wisdom, we were participating in it. The event marked a turning point in human-animal relations. Conservation efforts worldwide shifted from merely protecting species to preserving and supporting their roles. As wisdom keepers, the United Nations established the Global Wisdom Heritage Protocol, ensuring that animal ceremonial sites and practices were protected as vital planetary resources. Pine Haven expanded to become the first of many wisdom integration centers worldwide, places where humans could learn from and contribute to the quantum wisdom network that animals had been maintaining all along. The centers combined cutting-edge science with ancient knowledge, creating new paradigms for understanding consciousness and connection. Elizabeth Mackenzie worked with international teams to develop what they called quantum conservation, approaches to environmental protection that recognized and supported the sophisticated wisdom-sharing networks that existed in nature. These methods proved remarkably effective at addressing everything from climate change to ecosystem restoration. One particularly moving development came through the sanctuary's healing program. Dr. Michael Chang documented how participation in animal ceremonies helped people recover from trauma, addiction, and various physical ailments. The quantum fields generated during these ceremonies appeared to promote healing at both physical and psychological levels. These bears aren't just showing us how to heal the earth, Dr. Chang explained. They're showing us how to heal ourselves by reconnecting with the wisdom that exists in all living things. As spring flowers began to bloom around Sarah's grave, Silver and his companions performed a ceremony that would be remembered for generations. Joined by animals from across the sanctuary, they generated quantum fields powerful enough to be detected by satellites in orbit. The data from this event would provide insights that would influence scientific understanding for decades to come. But perhaps the most profound impact was on how humans understood their own place in Earth's story. The bears had shown that wisdom wasn't a human invention or possession, but a fundamental aspect of life itself, a force that all beings could access and contribute to. Pine Haven had become more than a sanctuary or research center. It was a reminder that humans were part of something far larger and more wonderful than they had imagined. A vast network of consciousness and connection that united all living things in an ongoing dance of evolution and discovery. The legacy of Silver and his companions extended far beyond their ceremonies at Sarah's grave. They had shown humanity that wisdom wasn't something to be hoarded or controlled, but a living force that grew stronger through sharing and connection. As the story of Pine Haven spread around the world, it sparked a revolution in how humans understood their relationship with nature. People began to recognize that every species had something vital to contribute to Earth's collective wisdom. Conservation became not just about preserving species, but about protecting and supporting the sophisticated networks of knowledge and connection that existed in nature. The bears had demonstrated that consciousness itself was not limited to individual minds, but existed as a field that all beings could access and influence. Their ceremonies weren't just rituals, they were technologies for connecting with and contributing to this field of shared wisdom. Emma's final journal entry captured the essence of what they had discovered. What began with one bear's dedication to a grave has revealed something profound about the nature of life itself. We are all connected in ways we are only beginning to understand. The bears haven't just shown us new facts about the world, they've shown us a new way of being in it. As spring fully arrived at Pine Haven, bringing with it new life and possibility, Silver continued his daily ceremonies at Sarah's grave. But now, these ceremonies were recognized for what they truly were, not just expressions of memory or loyalty, but vital contributions to a field of wisdom that connected all living things in an eternal dance of discovery and renewal. The story of the bear and the grave had become more than just a tale of unusual animal behavior. It had become a window into understanding the profound connections that united all life, a reminder that wisdom wasn't something to be possessed, but a force to be shared, and a call to remember our place in the great web of consciousness that spanned all of existence. And so, as new visitors arrived each day at Pine Haven, drawn by the remarkable story of Silver and his companions, they found not just a sanctuary or research center, but a place where the boundaries between species dissolved, where ancient wisdom met modern understanding, and where all beings could contribute to and learn from the endless dance of life itself. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.